She said her co-workers convinced her that she's out of my league and deserves someone better. Life has a strange way of testing our limits, often in ways we least expect. For me, the challenge began on an ordinary evening when my girlfriend of 5 years, Kate, told me she wanted to break up. There were no fiery arguments, no dramatic shouting matches. Instead, it was a quiet, soul-crushing moment, like the air had been sucked out of my lungs, leaving me gasping in disbelief. At 24 years old, I had spent nearly a third of my life with Kate, who was 23. We weren't just dating, we were partners in every sense of the word. Ours was a relationship built on trust, shared dreams, and countless milestones. We celebrated our first jobs, our first apartment, and our first real vacation together. Every plan for the future had her in it, my soulmate, my confidant, my rock. Kate and I always prided ourselves on open communication. We talked about everything, from trivial debates about whether pineapple belonged on pizza to our deepest fears and aspirations. Over the years, I worked tirelessly to provide for us, juggling college classes and multiple part-time jobs to secure a stable foundation. Kate had her own dreams too, attending cosmetology school and landing a job at a trendy salon in town. For a while, life seemed perfect. We celebrated her graduation with a weekend getaway, dreaming of the bright future ahead. But things started to change when she began working at the salon. It was an all-women environment, and though I was happy she had supportive colleagues, I noticed subtle shifts in her behavior. It started with offhand comments. "My coworkers keep asking why I'm with you," or "they think you're out of my league." At first, I laughed them off, brushing aside the remarks as harmless banter. After all, we were solid, weren't we? Kate assured me she ignored the negativity and loved me just the way I was. I wanted to believe her, and I did for a while. But those comments didn't stop. They lingered, growing like weeds in the garden of our relationship. They started to gnaw at me late at night as I lay awake, wondering if there was some truth behind them. I tried to address it with Kate, but she dismissed my concerns, waving them off with reassurances. "They're just jealous," she'd say. "Ignore them." And so, I tried. The breaking point came on a seemingly perfect evening. We had just returned from a date dinner at our favorite Italian place, followed by a stroll along the pier. The kind of night that reminded me why I loved her. But as I dropped her off at her apartment, she hesitated before stepping out of the car. Her expression shifted, and with trembling hands, she turned to me and said the words I never expected to hear. "I think we should break up." It was as if the ground beneath me crumbled. I stared at her, my chest tightening as my mind raced through every memory, every promise we had made to each other. I couldn't speak. The weight of her words had stolen my voice. Finally, I opened the car door and walked away, unable to face the reality of what had just happened. The silence between us that night wasn't out of anger. It was born from heartbreak so profound that I didn't know how to process it. Less than 4 hours later, Kate started calling and texting me. At first, I ignored her, unable to muster the strength to read her apologies. The messages kept coming, her tone growing more frantic with each one. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Please, let's talk. I'll quit my job if that's what it takes." She confessed that her coworkers had influenced her, planting seeds of doubt about our relationship. She called herself a fool for listening to them and begged for a second chance. My heart was torn. This was the woman I had dreamed of proposing to, the woman whose ring I had secretly designed with both our birthstones. imagining how perfect it would look on her finger. But she had allowed strangers' opinions to shake the trust we had spent years building. For days, I isolated myself. I turned off my phone and retreated to a remote Airbnb where I could work online and escape the chaos. My absence alarmed those around me, prompting a wellness check from the police. Embarrassed but touched by their concern, I assured them I was okay. My boss, having heard about my situation, called to check on me as well. It was a humbling reminder that while I felt alone, I wasn't truly abandoned. Eventually, Kate's parents reached out, asking me to meet with them and Kate to talk things through. They had always treated me like family, and part of me still respected them deeply. After much hesitation, I agreed to meet. When I arrived at their house, Kate rushed out to greet me, tears streaming down her face. She tried to hug me, but the gesture felt empty. Inside, her parents sat silently, their expressions a mix of concern and regret. Kate began apologizing profusely, explaining how her coworkers had preyed on her insecurities and convinced her that she deserved someone better. I listened, my heart breaking anew with every word. When she finished, I asked her the question that had been haunting me. Why didn't you defend us? Why didn't you set boundaries with them? Her response was a quiet, almost inaudible, I don't know. That answer was a dagger to my chest. It wasn't just about the breakup, it was about the betrayal, the fact that she had let others' opinions dictate her actions, jeopardizing the future we had planned together. Her doubts, once spoken, couldn't be unheard. I told her I couldn't simply erase what had happened. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. Every time I looked at her, I would wonder if she'd falter again, if she'd let someone else's words sway her the next time things got tough. I wasn't angry, I was heartbroken. Her parents tried to mediate, offering words of encouragement about how people make mistakes and grow from them. But the damage was done. I thanked them for their kindness and left, feeling heavier than I had when I arrived. Over the following weeks, I immersed myself in work, trying to piece my life back together. Friends reached out, offering their support, but I struggled to open up. The pain was too raw, too personal. Kate continued to message me, sending long, heartfelt letters about how she was working on herself and wanted to prove she could be better. She even quit her job at the salon, distancing herself from the coworkers who had caused so much harm. But it wasn't enough to erase the doubts in my mind. I realized that love alone couldn't sustain a relationship. Trust, respect, and unwavering support were just as crucial. And once those pillars were compromised, the foundation crumbled. As much as I loved Kate, I knew I couldn't go back. The experience taught me the harsh but invaluable lesson that sometimes love isn't enough. People can change, and relationships can grow, but some wounds leave scars too deep to ignore. Months later, as I reflected on everything that had happened, I felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness for what we had lost, but gratitude for the lessons learned. Life has a strange way of testing our limits, and though it broke me, it also reshaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. Kate will always be a part of my story, but she's no longer the center of it. And for the first time in years, I'm learning to be okay with that. I never planned for that moment to turn into such a poignant memory. As I stood there, holding the custom engagement ring I had painstakingly designed, my hands trembled. The intricate box gleamed in the soft light of the room, its hidden buttons waiting to reveal a glowing message I had imagined would make her eyes light up with joy. Will you be my life partner? But instead of joy, the moment was marked by tears. Pressing the button, I watched as the box opened to reveal the ring, a symbol of the future I had once dreamed of with her. Kate's sobs grew louder, filling the room with the sound of heartbreak and regret. Her parents sat nearby, their expressions a mix of sorrow and helplessness. I could feel the weight of everyone's emotions pressing down on me, but I knew I had to stay firm. Looking at her, I spoke the words I never thought I would say. Kate, I still love you. But the future I envisioned for us, it's not possible right now. I need time. We both need time to heal, to grow, and to figure out who we are apart from each other. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but it was necessary. For the next 3 months, Kate and I went our separate ways. She quit her job, finally distancing herself from the toxic coworkers who had played a role in our struggles. She also began therapy, confronting the insecurities and fears she had avoided for so long. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my own healing journey. Work became my refuge, and spending time with friends reminded me of the importance of having a support system outside of a relationship. At first, the separation felt unbearable. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake, replaying memories of us laughing, dreaming, and planning for a life together. But over time, the pain softened. I began to focus on rediscovering who I was, what made me happy, what I wanted from life. Slowly but surely, I started to feel like myself again. Just as I was beginning to find my footing, life threw an unexpected curveball. One afternoon, while out with friends, I collapsed. It happened so suddenly. One moment, I was laughing at a joke, and the next, I was on the ground, shaking uncontrollably. When I regained consciousness in the hospital, fear gripped me. The tests revealed a devastating diagnosis, a brain tumor. The words felt surreal, like they belonged to someone else's story, not mine. Surgery was my only option, but the risks were high, and the road to recovery would be uncertain. News of my condition spread quickly, reaching Kate despite our no-contact agreement. To my surprise, she and her family showed up at the hospital. When I woke up after the seizure, hers was the first face I saw. The emotions hit me like a tidal wave: relief, fear, and a longing I couldn't deny. For the first time in months, we really talked. There were no pretenses, no walls. Kate's regret was palpable, but so was her determination to make things right. "I know I hurt you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But I promise, no matter what happens, I'll stand by you through this." Her words were more than just a promise, they were a lifeline. Her parents echoed her sentiment, offering their unwavering support. They even invited me to move in with them during my recovery, a gesture of kindness that left me speechless. The day of the surgery arrived far too quickly. As they wheeled me into the operating room, I caught one last glimpse of Kate's tear-streaked face. The surgery was grueling, lasting over 8 hours. There were complications moments when the outcome hung in the balance, but the surgeons managed to remove most of the tumor. When I woke up, groggy and disoriented, I was alive. And I wasn't alone. Kate was there, sitting by my bedside, her eyes filled with hope. She reached for my hand, her touch gentle yet firm. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, her voice steady despite the tears that continued to fall. The weeks that followed were some of the most challenging of my life. Recovery was slow and painful, both physically and emotionally. But through it all, Kate was there. She cared for me tirelessly, ensuring I was comfortable and supported. She read to me when I was too weak to focus, encouraged me during physical therapy, and reminded me daily that I wasn't alone. As I watched her selflessly dedicate herself to my recovery, I began to see the woman I had fallen in love with all over again. She wasn't just the person who had hurt me. She was also the person who had once been my partner in every sense of the word. The journey to rebuilding trust wasn't easy. It required countless conversations, moments of vulnerability, and a commitment to growth on both sides. Kate continued therapy, working through the insecurities that had once driven a wedge between us. She learned to assert herself, setting boundaries with those who had previously influenced her negatively. Meanwhile, I focused on my own recovery, not just from the surgery, but from the emotional wounds I had carried for far too long. As we navigated this new chapter, we discovered a depth to our relationship that hadn't existed before. We learned to communicate openly, to face challenges as a team, and to appreciate the moments of joy amidst the struggles. One evening, as we sat together on the porch of her parents' house, Kate reached for my hand. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, her voice trembling, "but I want to face it with you, no matter what." Her words echoed my own thoughts. Life was fragile and unpredictable, but in that moment, I felt a sense of peace. Whether or not we would get married or have children someday was uncertain, but what mattered was the love we shared and the effort we were both willing to put into making it work. This journey has taught me lessons I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about finding strength in adversity and using it to grow. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing to let go of resentment and open your heart to the possibility of healing. And self-worth isn't just about valuing yourself, it's about recognizing that you deserve love and respect, even when life feels overwhelming. As I write this, I'm filled with gratitude. Gratitude for the second chance at life, for the people who stood by me when I needed them most, and for the love that continues to grow despite the heartbreak we've endured. Our story isn't perfect, and it never will be, but it's ours a testament to the power of resilience, forgiveness, and the unyielding human spirit. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: cherish the people you love. Life is unpredictable, and the moments of connection we share are what truly matter. Hold on to them, nurture them, and above all, never take them for granted. Because in the end, it's not the grand gestures or the perfect plans that define a relationship, it's the willingness to stand by each other, even when the path is uncertain, and to choose love again and again, no matter how hard it gets.